A former NFL star doubled up on a bold and wild Malachi Starks prediction. We talk about that, Baltimore Ravens winners and losers from the 2025 draft, and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens podcast, bringing you episodes Monday through Friday, sometimes bonus episodes on the weekends. We go live after every Ravens game, after every piece of Ravens big news, and shout outs to the everydayers out there, the first time listeners, and if you're somewhere in the middle, shout out to you as well. Tell a friend, tell a family member, if they want daily Ravens coverage, be sure that they are locked in here as well as you over here on Locked On Ravens. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It's a couple days removed from the 2025 NFL Draft. The Ravens, I'm feeling good about what they did. 11 draft picks in total. They got talent at the top that's supposed to be instant impact, and I certainly expect it to be that way for them. Some depth in the later rounds, some steals. So, look, I wouldn't say it was a perfect draft, but I think they did a really good job, and they were my clear winners of the draft. A lot of other teams did really well too, but I talked about that a little bit on our Monday episode, and I stand by that. Speaking of people standing by certain things, a former NFL star doubled down on a very bold and somewhat wild Malachi Starks prediction in a good way, wild in a good way. Malachi Starks prediction, we'll get into that in the first part of the show. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to be diving into some Baltimore Ravens draft winners and losers from this draft cycle here. And I'm talking more so on the team already, not from the rookie class itself. Then in the final part of the show, we'll dive into more draft analysis, talk about some of the, I guess, more of the media response to Baltimore's draft. I'm going to give a little bit of my analysis as well. I've done a lot of that, but want to give a little more. So plenty to dive into, plenty to talk about over here on Locked On Ravens today. Gerald McCoy has been in the Malachi Starks corner, obviously star defensive lineman for many years at the NFL level, and he is all in on the Malachi Starks train. A lot more than a lot. Look, I know a lot of people are very much fans of the Malachi Starks pick and are all on board Malachi Starks making a huge impact for Baltimore this year. Now, McCoy, after the first night of the draft, went on NFL Network and said that Malachi Starks is the best defensive player in the 2025 NFL Draft. He said, quote, "This is the best defensive pick in the first round." After the draft, he went and talked again about how he thinks Malachi Starks is going to be the defensive rookie of the year. It was a way too early prediction for Gerald McCoy. And, that was their segment here. Way too early defensive rookie of the year over here. That we're looking at this clip from Gerald McCoy. I just want to read off what he said about Malachi here. He said, quote, "I'm going to go with the guy who I said is the best defensive player in the draft, Malachi Starks. This guy's a playmaker, and he's already on a really good defense. When you've got a guy that can roam, make plays, roam the field, he can go sideline to sideline. He can cover you one-on-one, but he doesn't have to do much." He mentioned Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Nnamdi Madubuike, Mike Green, Kyle Van Noy, all these pieces on that defense that Malachi can help out, and they can help out Malachi. He said, quote, "I believe they're going to put him in great spots. What I love about the Baltimore Ravens is the vets, the Hall of Famers. They come back. Arguably the greatest safety of all time in Ed Reed coming back to mentor a guy like this. I like it." So, look, there are a lot of players you could put in the defensive rookie of the year conversation. Obviously, if Travis Hunter plays a lot of corner this year, which a lot of people are obviously expecting him to, he's going to be front and center in that conversation. Abdul Carter, who was the third overall pick by the Giants, he's going to be in that conversation. There are going to be a lot of players who could potentially live up to that defensive rookie of the year billing. I do think Malachi Starks has the potential to win the award. Now, why don't I think he is, I should say, why don't I think he is the front runner in a lot of people's eyes? It's because, in my opinion, I think people look at that Baltimore Ravens team And they say, yeah, is he going to be able to rack up enough stats to qualify? Because I think impact-wise, Malachi will have a lot of impact. And actually, Mentai Te'o, who's a former NFL linebacker, he mentioned that he believes that Malachi Starks is going to be the most successful pick in the first round because of the fact that he has all those guys around him. He says that Malachi Starks is going to be the pick that most likely succeeds in his rookie season. And he mentions the fact that, yes, he doesn't have to be a unicorn. He said, quote, he doesn't have to be a unicorn. He doesn't have to be a franchise-changing player. He can just be Malachi Starks. Sideline to sideline, very instinctual, can come up in the run game if you need him. That allows the Ravens to take out Hamilton and use him the way they want to use him, which is close to the line of scrimmage, disguising, coming off the edge on blitzes. So I think that what Manti Te'o was saying here is exactly correct, is that, you know, he's not going to rack up like every single step. He's not going to lead the NFL in every single category for rookies, right? I don't think that's the conversation. But in terms of an impact player and a guy that's going to be put in positions and will succeed based off of his skill set, I think Malachi for sure should be in that, especially way too early defensive rookie of the year conversation. Again, I don't think he's going to be favored in that. I feel like, again, people will want to go with Travis Hunter. They'll want to go with Abdul Carter. But Malachi is a player that in this Ravens defense, I think he's going to have an impact, whether it is box score impact or just they can move Kyle Hamilton around, right? That's been the big thing. That's what everybody's saying. Oh, they can move Kyle Hamilton back to where he's excelling the most. Not that he didn't excel in the deep part of the field last year when he was put there out of necessity, because he certainly did. But in my opinion, the Ravens do have an opportunity with Malachi Starks to put him in the best positions to win. And Manti Te'o talked about Starks and his versatility, and actually even mentioned the fact that in an ideal world, your mentor, like on the roster, is in your positional group, like one of those greatest players on the roster. That's a guy in your positional room, and who's in Malachi Starks' room? It's Kyle Hamilton. So he's going to be able to learn from Kyle Hamilton. You know, I'm sure Ed Reed will give him advice. I remember when Hamilton was first drafted by Baltimore. Was it when he first got to Baltimore? I think it was. Ed Reed called in and, like, you know, said congratulations, and I'm sure given Hamilton much more advice since then. So I'm really excited for Starks. And look, some people are even talking about Mike Green in Defensive Rookie of the Year conversations already, if he can have, you know, his impact and be a really solid pass rusher. But for Starks, I think he can have an impact, especially with, look, the ball skills that he has. A lot of the Ravens players do have that skill set. But for Starks, like, for example, Brandon Stevens, that's a guy that doesn't have ball skills, didn't turn his head around for the ball. And that was devastating and detrimental to what the Ravens were trying to do on the defensive side of the ball. Starks can force turnovers. He can come up and run support, like so many have already said. And the fact that Gerald McCoy has doubled down on this, not only saying that Starks is the best defensive player in this class and a very talented class, but also saying that he is the guy that he believes is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. That is belief right there. That is belief. So, and that's coming from a guy who had a very successful career at the NFL level. So with Starks and his skill set, plus the fact that I think that there is just such a high ceiling for him and a high floor, where there already is a minimum level of production that I feel like Starks can get to with Baltimore, even if his role isn't the biggest compared to some of his other rookie counterparts or his fellow rookies. That doesn't mean that I don't think he's going to be in that conversation. So, yes, you know, I think that Stark should definitely be in that conversation. Again, is he going to be favored to win it? I don't think so. But who's to say that he won't have a much bigger role than initially thought from some people? And I've seen that out there where I personally believe Starks is going to have a huge role day one and, like, have that impact all season. I've seen some people say, oh, well, they have so much already there. I mean, not really. Yes, Kyle Hamilton is there and Darius is back, but I mean, plus the fact that Starks can come up and play nickel for you, you can put them all over the field. Like Zach Orr, John Harbaugh, this team's going to have a field day with Malachi Starks, and I think, look, it's a bold take by Gerald McCoy. It's a little wild in a good way, but you know what? I absolutely love it because Baltimore needs that immediate impact from him and from Mike Green, if we're being honest. And as I've said time and time again since the draft, I think they're going to get that out of both of those guys. But coming up in the second part of the show, we will talk about the Ravens and some winners and losers, not from the rookie class, but from people who are already on the roster. Stay tuned. A lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Denver Nuggets, it's my team in the NBA, go up 3-2 over the Clippers in Game 5. And again, over on FanDuel, if you chose the Nuggets, if you rode with Denver, you're living large over on FanDuel. But the Clippers have an opportunity to get back in the series. This game's going to be tomorrow on Thursday. So if you want to ride with the Clippers for Game 6, you can go over on FanDuel and do that. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. We are back here, second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher here on Wednesday, breaking it down with you. All things Baltimore Ravens. Draft ends a couple days ago. Right, waiting on rookie minicamp is that's going to pop up here soon. And we'll get our first look of all these rookies in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. But we're going to take a break from the rookies for a second. We're going to take a look at the roster as a whole. And we're going to look at some winners and losers. I always love doing this and looking at this aspect because I think it's a different way to look at it. Because, you're so caught up in the rookies and so caught up in, oh, well, this guy's going to impact the game this way. And those are all good conversations to have, and we've certainly had them here on the show. But who won and lost on the roster? Guys who were fighting for roster spots or maybe saw their position get taken by a rookie. I want to start off with the winners, then we will talk about the losers. I think a big winner or a position that was a big winner all over draft weekend for Baltimore, I think it's the guard position. You talk about Daniel Falele, Andrew Voorhees, and even if you want to throw Ben Cleveland's name in there, you can. I think all three of those guys were really big winners on draft weekend. Why do I say that? Because Baltimore did not take a Tyler Booker who would come in and immediately start week one or one of those types of players. I think Emory Jones has a shot. I think he will be in the conversation. But in reality, my prediction is that it's going to be Falele and Voorhees in week one, which I'm not overly confident about, to put it lightly. But I think that when you talk about it from winners and losers perspective, yeah, I believe that with those two or three, if you want to put Cleveland's name in there, as I mentioned, the fact that they waited till the third to take Emory Jones, and Emory Jones, honestly, profile, it depends. Some people see him as a swing tackle. Some people see him as a guard. I think it just kind of depends how you view him. I think he'll get a spot in that guard competition. Now, will he win it? I don't believe so year one, but again, that bodes well for Falele and Voorhees in Cleveland, who, if they had taken a Tyler Booker, or even if they had traded up for a Wyatt Malum or another guard that could be that immediate impact player, Tate Ratledge, another one, et cetera, we could go on about that. Then we're maybe talking about those guys as losers because the guy's coming in to directly take your spot. But I just think with the profile Emory Jones has, which again, highly touted recruit, someone who is a high motor player, solid, had a decently down year last year compared to his 2023 season, it's the making of, in my opinion, a swing tackle. Like, I think he will be their sixth offensive lineman or seventh, depending on if you're a Ben Cleveland believer or not, which is fine. But I definitely would have liked him to maybe have been more aggressive in that. And again, it's not that I don't like the Jones pick. I actually do. He was, again, on my short list of guys. I would have been fine with them taking it 91. They did. And I was happy with the pick based off who was available. But, I feel like they could have used their draft capital a little bit more in their favor. And they also missed out on an opportunity to do that last year as well. I think another big winner in this, and honestly, this one might be a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit unorthodox. I'll say Tez Walker is a winner. And the reason I say that is because, yes, with DeAndre Hopkins coming in that aspect, Tez Walker is a loser. But the Ravens, if they fell in love with one of these receivers early and they took a guy, that guy's going to jump over Tez Walker on the depth chart, right? I think that Tez Walker right now, depending on where you view Tylan Wallace, and I'll even throw Tylan Wallace in this conversation too as a winner, depth wide receivers. Not that LeJontay Wester can't come in and do something for you out of the slot, and, you're not really going to see Tez Walker snaps in the slot. But in my opinion, if the Ravens had taken a bigger bodied wide receiver and maybe a little earlier, like maybe Jack Bech was someone who they wanted to take, that would have cut into those reps. And I think that the fact that Baltimore went with DeJounte West, who again, that was a pick of mine that I liked as well. I think that Tez Walker was a winner in this whole equation too. I also think that, speaking from a coaching perspective, I think a lot of the coaching staff, they were winners here. George Warhop was pounding the table for Carson Vinson. Zach Gore was fired up to get a lot of the defensive prospects that he got. It just felt like the coaching staff and the staff in general was very aligned in who Baltimore was taking and the players that they wanted. That to me was a really big thing that you could especially see during the Ravens productions when they kind of put together the draft calls. So I think that's a big thing. I think the coaching staff was very happy with the draft, which is awesome. I think that another big winner was Mark Andrews, obviously not getting traded, and the fact that Baltimore did not take a tight end whatsoever. I think that it's pretty safe to say that Andrews will be back on the team next season. That's what Eric DeCosta has now said. The tone has changed, right? Pre-draft press conference, we weren't so sure, but the tone has shifted on Mark Andrews. So I believe Mark is a winner. Also, I think on the defensive line, Broderick Washington, a really big winner here. Someone who, if the Ravens had taken a defensive lineman much earlier in the draft, you might be looking at a much more reduced role for him. I think that Aeneas Peebles is someone that can come in and make an immediate impact as a pass rusher on the interior, but, is a 6th-round pick. If the Ravens had taken Derrick Harmon, if he hadn't gone to Pittsburgh earlier, like if they had taken a 1st or 2nd or 3rd round guy, that guy's probably jumping Broderick Washington on the depth chart. So I thought he was another winner, and just, someone that I think he has more of a path to a role this season, in my opinion, as opposed to if Baltimore took a guy earlier on the defensive line. A couple losers to me. I think Jalen Armour-Davis is a pretty big loser here. The Ravens taking 2 corners, and I think for Bilal Kone and Robert Longerbeam, 2 guys that, aren't going to make the biggest impacts in year 1 unless there are injuries. But in terms of roster spots, yes, you can never have enough corners, but maybe there's an undrafted guy the Ravens really like, or they want to sign a vet or another vet. Jalen Armour-Davis might be on the outside looking in. I think Rasheen Ali is a loser here just because I think Baltimore taking 11 picks makes him a loser, where I just don't know if they're going to have enough space to keep a Rasheen Ali on the roster because of how many draft picks they have. And we know that the Ravens are not afraid to cut draft picks, which, we're going to get into in a second here when we continue talking about losers. But I just feel like Ali might not have a spot. I feel like they might keep 3 running backs. Keaton Mitchell is, looking good and feeling good apparently too. So I'm right now, if I had to give you a 53-man roster prediction, I do not think that Ali would be on it. Another loser to me is David Ojabo with the selection of Mike Green. Now, if they had not taken an outside linebacker or an edge guy until the 5th or 6th round, and that was it, maybe you can make an argument, hey, Ojabo, they don't sign anybody, that roster spot is safe if you can have a big preseason and, that 5th or 6th or 7th rounder will get cut. Well, we know Mike Green's making this roster. And I just don't know if I see a spot for Ojabo. I don't. I feel like that move might push Ojabo out if he can't capitalize. And even if he has an okay preseason, I don't think it's in their best interest to keep 6 outside linebackers, which is where you're currently at. And it would be between getting rid of Adisa Isaac and David Ojabo. And I just think at this point, Ojabo has upside, but, I think Isaac, to me, is a guy that I'm more intrigued by at this point, just because Ojabo, it's been the injuries. And that's just the fact of the matter there. I think Justin Tucker was a loser here as well. The Ravens taking a kicker for the first time in franchise history. And again, there are still multiple outcomes in that Tucker situation where he either stays on the team or gets cut. We do not know that yet. So that's still on standby mode. But the fact that they did take a kicker, did spend the draft capital, it doesn't bode well for him. Like, there's still a chance that he is on the team, still a chance he's not. But, Baltimore is clearly looking at kickers throughout this process. And they like Tyler Loop, and he has an NFL-ready leg. So we'll see how that all unfolds. But, definitely not a winner for Justin Tucker that the Ravens took a player at his position. And it feels like for the first time in the Justin Tucker era, it's not just a guy who's a camp body, right? So that's another thing that I was looking at there. Other than that, though, I don't think there are too many others that I highlighted. Baltimore, it was it was fine. Like, I think for Baltimore, it was fine. The winners on the roster, I think they're excited to kind of attack having another opportunity to get a bigger role. And for the losers, they're just going to have to work a little harder to either secure a roster spot or, make an impact so that Baltimore feels like they cannot cut them. So overall, I think Baltimore, actually, wait, one more. One more loser. Nick Samek, I think, is a loser here. The Ravens took Grant Dellinger in the final round. I just don't know if there's a spot for Samek. Maybe the Ravens view Ben Cleveland as their backup center this year. I don't know, but, Samek obviously was a healthy scratch inactive. He was their 7th rounder last season, and I think it's either going to be Dellinger or Nick Samek. But again, that did not bode well for Samek after they drafted 3 offensive linemen. So I think that, George Warhop, a winner, the offensive line, that's great, but might push some guys already on the roster onto the very uncertain roster bubble. But coming up in the final part of the show, we'll dive into more Ravens draft analysis because I do have a few more points I want to make about some of these guys. So be sure to stay tuned. We have plenty to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever as well. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Again, use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher here with you still. Wednesday edition of the show. We are still grinding out Ravens content as we always do. We're 5 days a week, no matter what. Every single week, 5 days a week. I've never missed an episode of this show since 2019, coming up on a huge milestone on Friday. So really excited to celebrate that. And I'm excited that we're continuing to celebrate this Ravens draft class. So be sure you hit the like and subscribe button in video form and audio form. I love the audio community, love the video community, love all the communities that we have built up. Social media, subtext. It's been an honor to build this show up, and I'm really excited to continue the Locked On Ravens journey here because it's been one heck of a ride so far. But let's continue on the draft analysis here for the Ravens, and I think for this Ravens team, really solid drafts. Again, you get that value at the top, Malachi Starks and Mike Green. You get some steals here. I was over the moon at the Aeneas Peebles pick. I liked LeJontay Wester, as I mentioned. Carson Vincent, he's a guy that I think can have a lot of potential, not as a year one guy, but someone who can turn maybe into a player that works out for Baltimore. Teddy Buchanan is a linebacker. Baltimore underrated need there. And there was actually a clip over on the Ryan Ripken show of Carson Vincent talking with Ryan Ripken, and you can just tell that he is fired up to be a Raven. He's ready for football season. He's enamored with the way the organization is perceived, and he is ready to get to work. And that's a guy he screams Raven. Teddy Buchanan, he was also on the Ryan Ripken show, and he talked about how, coming into a linebacker history of guys like Ray Lewis and Roquan being there and having that mentor, he's excited and ready to go too. So I think Baltimore overall got a really solid group of players. And the big thing for me is, again, instant impact versus projections and long-term guys, right? That to me is the biggest thing that Eric DeCosta has to balance out. And Kadri Ismail and I talked about this on yesterday's show. And if you haven't checked that out, be sure to do so, because we talked about multiple Ravens rookies having very strong words for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens fan base. So you don't want to miss that. And Q had a lot of great insights. One of the things that we had talked about was Steve Bisciotti during his interview. It was one of the first times we've seen him sit down in a while, was him and John Harbaugh. And he was asked, all right, what do you see for the next 30 years of Ravens football? And he's like, to be honest with you, I'm not really thinking about that. I want to win now, with these group of guys. And Q and I talked about instant impact. Well, you get that with Malachi Starks and Mike Green, as we've talked about. And to me, where it was if you were taking a first-round offensive lineman that wasn't going to play behind Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten, that didn't really sit well with me. But you double dip at corner, you triple dip at offensive line, and you kind of round out the rest of your roster to the point where, yes, Baltimore still has a couple of holes I'd like for them to fill. We've talked about maybe another defensive lineman, which would make sense, and run stuff for there. I mean, if they want to sign a guard, they can, but I just feel like they're going to roll with what they have there. The weaknesses on this roster mainly rely on the special teams right now. I mean, it feels like the kicker position is up in the air. Punter Jordan Stout has been good, okay, not great since being a 4th-round pick. And then returner obviously has been the big downfall of the team over the last handful of the season. So there are still so many avenues and so many ways for Baltimore to, well, I shouldn't say so many. There are ways for Baltimore to get better because you look up and down the roster, Baltimore has a lot of guys that can contribute. And the fact that their offseason went the way that it did, it gives me a lot more confidence that this is a team we saw reach the divisional round last season. But the thing with Baltimore is, like, it's not been a talent issue over the last handful of seasons, especially 2023 and 2024, which is they had the talent. In my opinion, they had the roster both years. I'd say probably more so in 2023 than 2024. Like 2023 felt like that team of destiny. They were just so dominant. 2024, obviously, they went through a bit more adversity, especially defensively in the secondary. But still, like, coming into the playoffs, they were playing like the best team in football both years, where obviously they won their last 4 games last season, and then they were so good in 2023. It's been about execution. So, you know, stacking talent like the Ravens have, it helps and it works. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to perform when it matters. Everybody expects a great regular season from this Ravens team. That's just, it's what they do. But in the playoffs, the problem is now it's what they do in that aspect is they choke in some way, shape, or form. You have to get over that and just play football, man. All you have to do is play football. So I'm glad the Ravens were able to stack up on a draft, stack up on some rookies, and I'm excited to see these guys in a Ravens uniform for the first time coming up. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in to Locked On Ravens today. That's all I have for you. Again, on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. We have you covered every single weekday plus more. So coming up tomorrow, of course, we will dive into the latest Ravens happenings, the latest Ravens draft news and analysis, and a lot more. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.